When it comes to rape and when it comes to the issue of should it be legal for a woman to be able to get an abortion if she's
well, so I'm very proud of my pro-life record, and I've always adopted the position that the method of conception doesn't change the definition of life.
Now, when Paul Ryan says they're the method of conception, what he is talking about is rape. That's what he's talking about in terms of policy, that rape victims should be forced by the government to bear the child of the rapist. In terms of politics, the reason the presumptive vice presidential nominee of the Republican Party is giving news interviews about rape in the final days before the Republican National Convention is, of course, because of this guy.
I may not be the favorite candidate of some people within the Republican establishment, but the voters made a decision.
I want to know if there's anyone or anything that could make you change your mind.
If Claire McCaskill would withdraw and give the election to me, that might be a consideration.
You know what? Claire McCaskill is not going to withdraw and give the election to you. In fact, Claire McCaskill is going to beat you. Before last week, Todd Akin was ahead in the Missouri Senate race because Missouri, as a state, is trending pretty red. But Todd Akin is not ahead in that race anymore.
If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
Yeah, that guy is no longer ahead. I know it's shocking. Since then, it seems like it took about a day or so for Missouri to digest what had just happened with Todd Akin. There was a pop-up poll done immediately after Mr. Akin's remarks, and it did not show a big change in the race. Mr. Akin was still ahead of Claire McCaskill by a point. But then, as soon as people absorbed that he really had said that thing about legitimate rape in describing his view that rape victims should be forced by the government to bear the child of their rapist, the polls started to look like this. And this one taken on Wednesday, 3 days after his now famous remarks. Mr. Akin is losing by 10 points to Claire McCaskill. And so, yeah, the Republican Party does not want Todd Akin to stay in this race against Claire McCaskill. The Republican Party would very much like Todd Akin to disappear. Short of that, they would like him to stay as far away from the news cycle as possible, because when Mr. Akin is in the news, the fact that Paul Ryan agrees with Todd Akin on forcing rape victims to bear the child of their rapist, that fact is also in the news. So needless to say, Republican U.S. Senate nominee Todd Akin is totally not invited to the RNC. He is specifically and publicly not invited to the party's national convention. Today, though, Democratic groups are pointing out that the RNC has invited to the convention the guy who has become perhaps Todd Akin's biggest defender and advocate, not to mention a fellow force rape victims to bear the child of their rapist policy enthusiast. I'm talking, of course, about Mike Huckabee. He has a prime-time headlining speaking slot at the RNC next week. And Mike Huckabee has not only been rushing to Todd Akin's defense this week, he is trying to help Todd Akin raise money. Mr. Huckabee sent a blast email to his fans and supporters yesterday saying, quote, "Is this what the party really thinks of principled pro-life advocates? I'm waiting for the apology from whoever the genius was on the high pedestals of our party who thought it wise to not only shoot our wounded, but run over him with tanks and trucks and then feed his body to the liberal wolves. I will join Todd as often as I can in his fight for our party's pro-life policies. If the National Republican Senatorial Committee and RNC and the money-rich PACs won't help Todd Akin get us to the majority, then we'll do it without them." So Todd Akin, who has been essentially expunged from the party while trying to justify his policy position that pregnant rape victims should be forced against their will to bear the rapist child, he cannot come to the Republican National Convention. But Mike Huckabee, who believes exactly the same thing in terms of policy and who is inveighing against the Republican Party for being so mean to Todd Akin, he is a prime-time Republican National Convention headliner. The Republican Party's problem on this issue is not a Todd Akin problem specifically. Their problem is that Todd Akin's vision for women's rights and a crackdown on rape victims and incest victims is a common position among elected Republican leaders and candidates right now. It is, in fact, the position of their brand new vice presidential nominee.
When it comes to rape and when it comes to the issue of should it be legal for a woman to be able to get an abortion if she's
well, so I'm very proud of my pro-life record, and I've always adopted the position that the method of conception doesn't change the definition of life.
Rape doesn't change what we're going to force this woman to do. Paul Ryan, just like Todd Akin, wants the government to have the power to regulate the pregnancies of rape victims and incest victims to assure the government's chosen outcome, even if it's against your will. Even if it's against your doctor's will. But don't worry, the argument goes, he's only going to be vice president.
But let's remember, I'm joining the Romney Ryan ticket. and the president makes policy. And the president, in this case, the future president Mitt Romney, has exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother, which is a vast improvement of where we are right now. Mitt Romney's going to be the president sets policy. His policy is exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. I'm comfortable with it because it's a good step in the right direction.
Good step in the right direction. Vast improvement. What he's saying is that overturning Roe versus Wade and criminalizing abortion, except in cases of rape, incest, or the risk of a woman's death, that would be a step in the right direction, a step in the right direction toward what he actually wants, what Paul Ryan would do with the hypothetical Paul Ryan presidency, what he has been trying to do in Congress, which is to criminalize abortion for everybody, including rape victims and incest victims. And so on the Friday before the Republican convention, rape policy and the split down the Republican ticket over who is more of a hardliner against rape victims, not rapists, but against rape victims, is what the country is talking about with regard to the Republicans' presidential ticket. This is the conversation heading into their nominating convention, which, Todd Akin or no Todd Akin, is not a situation they want to be in. This is not what they wanted all their local TV interviews to be about at this point. But that is probably something they should have thought about when they picked Paul Ryan to be their vice presidential nominee. Because the Democrats are now counting on even people who might otherwise be okay with Republicans, even people who are themselves Republicans, not being okay with this stuff.
I was a Republican most of my life.
I'm still a registered Republican.
I was raised in a very Republican conservative family.
One of the things that makes me really upset about it is the attitude toward birth control, contraceptives, and abortion.
If you truly believe in a small government, that government shouldn't be deciding what I can and cannot do with my own body.
I'm very concerned about Mitt Romney's policies concerning women's rights.
He wants to reverse Roe v. Wade.
I don't want to even think about them having control. As a woman, I don't.
If you're a conservative woman and you believe in small government, then Barack Obama is your candidate because he's keeping the government out of the decisions that should remain between you and God and you and your own conscience.
The Obama-Biden campaign has just posted that today. Todd Akin did not create this problem for the Republicans, but he did bring this problem that they have right out into the open. And the Democrats are pressing their advantage on it. And because of that, we are now about to see about how big a problem it is for the whole country, with the whole country paying attention to this when the Republicans least want them to be doing that.